Anytime, Joel.
Thank you, Stephanie. You know, the big question that many Americans, the nation as a whole, is looking at is really a hard look at where we're at economically. Take a look at states like Michigan. Take a look at states like New York. Take a look at states like California. They're feeling the effects of what is, and many would argue, still a recession. Now, they can say we're not in a recession, but we certainly aren't growing. There's no debate about that whatsoever. So tonight, what I've asked our viewers to really ask themselves is, are we recession-proof? Here in the upper Midwest, is the Fargo Moorhead community recession-proof? And so I asked Craig Whitney, the CEO and president of the Fargo Moorhead Chamber, the Chamber, to be my guest. Craig, good to have you here.
Joel, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's an easy question. Are we recession-proof?
Well, you know, we are very lucky, as you know, in the Fargo Moorhead area for the lowest unemployment in the country, the only state with a budget surplus in the state of North Dakota. But you could never say that any place, it'd be very dangerous, I think, and reckless to say we're recession-proof. But we're very lucky in this part of the country. The states that you mentioned, I couldn't help but thinking of Arizona, the state that I moved here from. And the Arizona economy is a mess. And, you know, I have a house there that I can't sell. Fortunately, I have it rented. When we moved here and got ready to sell, we found that there were only 4 comparable sales, 2 of them short sales, 2 of them foreclosures. Takes the market price down very low. Every day I go around town here and meet with people, and every once in a while, and really about every day, somebody says, oh, I went down to Arizona and picked up a great deal, 40 cents on the dollar. Well, that's good for them, but it's not good if you're the seller. So we are very fortunate about our economy here, but I can tell you that our members are still very cautious. They are slow to buy to make capital improvements for their business. They're cautious about employees. They're cautious about spending big money. And the biggest reason, and that's not because of our economy, that's not because business is bad, because business is good. It's because they're concerned about what's going on in Washington, D.C.
Let's talk about the 2 states and the 2 different communities that you serve, Fargo and Moorhead. There's 2 completely separate economies here. You've got the North Dakota economy, which is being driven by oil. I mean, we can't really debate that. It's being driven by the Bakken, and of course, a very strong ag sector bill. And then you've got the Minnesota economy where, you know, it was a dogfight in St. Paul this year. Why such a difference in such close proximity?
Well, you know, that's a difficult question. That's one still after about a year and a half I'm trying to get my hands around. Obviously, the politics of the 2 states are different. I think it speaks well of North Dakota that they have a legislature that you served in for many years that meets every other year, is in for roughly 80, 90 days, right? And they get the job done and have a budget surplus. You know, Minnesota obviously has about a $5 or $6 billion deficit. They have a lot of issues they're dealing with, and I think that the coming year is going to be crucial for them, and there's a lot of different challenges. And, of course, you mentioned oil. Farming, agriculture is big in North Dakota, and so is manufacturing. So
one of the big things that your business community is counting on in the Fargo Moorhead area, though, for stability is permanent flood protection. You want that. I have never in my life seen a chamber come out for a sales tax. You did. Explain to the viewers why.
We did. And, Joel, before I came here, the Chamber, as I understand it, came out and supported the city of Fargo's half-cent sales tax. But what you're referring to, since I have been here, is we also supported the Cass County. And we did it not because we like tax increases, of course we don't, but we did it because of your earlier point. Permanent flood protection has got to happen in this area. And that's why we have formed a task force that you and I talked on the radio a week or so ago about. It's very much still in the infant stages, but we're working closely with the EDC, and we're going to put together a group of business people that can talk to the business community, to our elected officials, and to the community at large and say, look, no more excuses. We know what the challenges are in terms of getting the funding. We know the expense involved in it, but we can no longer do what we do every single year, even though all 3 of our cities do a fantastic job fighting the flood. It's too expensive, it's flood fatigue, and it hurts economic development. Eventually, it could even hurt and get people that are fed up and move away for that reason. You know, we're talking about companies that are potentially interested in expansion. Well, if we don't have permanent flood protection and a company can go 2-3 hours away to Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska and expand, they might do it.
Has the Chamber signed off on the Metro Area Study Committee's plan? In other words, by giving your allegiance to the tax, which normally you wouldn't do, by endorsing that tax, that Cass County-wide tax, have you then supported what the Metro Area Study Committee says this is going to be the plan? So if I find myself in Oxbow and Hickson, you know, I lose.
Right. We have not signed off on any particular plan. We have not gotten involved in North Dakota or Minnesota, and frankly, this task force is going to be high level. They're just going to say, we have got to get permanent flood protection.
Okay. So really the goal is just to make sure every spring you're not going through
Absolutely.
this. Okay. Now, one other step that I want to talk about is you, since you have come to town, have made every effort to bring some very high-profile people to town. Ollie North recently came to town, spoke. You got a huge crowd out for that. Bob Woodward, one half of that team that was very active in the Watergate investigation, is coming to town. Talk to me about this event.
What we did about a year and a half ago is we said we want to create an event, brand it as its own event. We call it Voices of Vision. It's an annual event to be held every November. As you mentioned, we kicked it off last November with Lieutenant Oliver North, and it was very successful. It was sold out, and we couldn't have put another body in the room. And he delivered a message unlike what a few people in our community expected or thought, when some of them thought we were trying to bring in some right-wing extremist and
well, he had run for office.
Tie it to politics and everything. And the reality is his speech, his remarks were just what we told people they were going to be. It was very pro-military. He does a show where he travels on a regular basis to Afghanistan and Iraq. He gave us a first-rate update of exactly what was going on there. He talked about the military. He challenged our members to considering hiring veterans. He pointed out that in the national economy at that time, the unemployment rate was running at about 10 or 11%, and told us that within veterans, it's over 20%. He talked about small business because his wife is a small business person. So we were very successful with that. So this year, just a few weeks ago, as you mentioned, we announced this year's speaker, November 17th at the Ramada Inn, is going to be Bob Woodward. And as you made reference to, Bob Woodward is a well-known journalist, been associated with the Washington Post, had syndicated columnist, has written 16 books, has studied every president in modern-day history, has already written a book on President Obama, and his topic of his speech is going to be the presidency from Nixon to Obama.
And how we got there.
And how we got there, and we think we already have tremendous amount of interest in it.
Well, he certainly is one of those Sunday morning talking heads. And,
That's right.
And I think, quite frankly, will be very interesting. It'll be one, if time allows me to, one I'll definitely want to be at.
We hope you can.
And not to mention the fact, I think it opens the nation's eyes to what commerce-wise is happening in our community. So I think the game plan's a good game plan, Craig.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, not only has he written about presidencies, but he's written about the economy. And I expect, you know, I was talking to some folks the other day, and I expect him not only to talk about the books that he's written and studying the presidencies, but tie that into the economies that he's seen and where the national economy has gone under those different presidencies and where we are today. But, you know, we created this program because we wanted to give another benefit to our members and to the community. We wanted to bring in high-profile people that in a market this size we don't get to see every day. Yep. You know, if you're in Chicago or New York or Phoenix, you get an opportunity to see a lot of these type of speakers. So that's what we're doing, and we have said we're going to have people from all walks of life, and I think based on kicking it off last year and this year's speakers, we're showing that we are doing exactly what we said we were going to do.
So if people want to come, how do they do it?
If they want to come, they can call the chamber, 218-233-1100, or go to our website, fmwfchamber.com. The tickets are $55. It's a lunch for members and $75 for non-members. Okay. And what we are finding, you know, we just announced this, as I said, and we have over 250 people already signed up, so we expect to sell out. Have a good lunch, and we'll get you in there at 12 and out by 1:30.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Folks, the main question that I wanted to ask him, are we recession-proof? Well, You know what? For my money, if you have a good, strong farm bill, that's a big factor of it, right? If you have a good sugar program, that's another big factor of it. Our foundation here in the Red River Valley is based upon agriculture. Look at the businesses and what they supply in the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo communities. The other question, though, that really comes up in all of this is we've got a little something going on in North Dakota that Minnesota doesn't. And I don't want to be rude to my friends on the east side of the river. We've got this little oil patch called the Bakken, and it's funding a whole lot of what North Dakota's loving. Back to you, Stephanie. Well, I'm kind of curious what our viewers think.